Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about ladies' vanity items, such as powder boxes. And so basically, Victorian women wore makeup, but on the sneak. It was, especially in the Victorian era, thanks to the Queen's public declaration that wearing makeup was impolite, women pretty much resorted to lip biting. Yes, lip biting. Rubbing red ribbons on their lips, trading recipes for lipstick with their friends in underground lip rouge societies. They also actually got the red color for their lips from bugs, which is absolutely crazy. And they would dust their faces with zinc oxide to attain a pale look. The paler you looked, the more bougie you were, pretty much. They also smeared fruits or flowers and smudged them on their lips to get the perfect lip color. And it was basically like actresses and prostitutes during the Victorian era were looked down upon because they wore makeup. During this time, if one tampered with their natural beauty or their natural color, they were looked at in disdain. So women would use products around their homes as makeup, and they would create all sorts of concoctions just to give themselves a more naturally made up face so that people wouldn't think they were one of the prostitutes. I have here two powder boxes. These are antique. And so again, about the makeup. So obvious makeup was very taboo in Victorian times. And when I say obvious, you know, like today, it's very obvious that we're wearing makeup. And it was believed that cheeks painted with blush had to look flushed and lips had to look bitten rather than painted. Eyebrows were lightly plucked and darkened with natural ingredients, and eyeliner all but disappeared in the Victorian era. So the ideal beauty in the Victorian era the ideal 19th century beauty had pale, almost translucent skin, rosy cheeks, crimson lips, white teeth, and sparkling eyes. She was waspishly thin and elegant. She had elegant collarbones. Could you even say collarbones could be elegant? And physical appearance alone was not enough to ensure that one would be seen as beautiful or socially acceptable. Not only did you have to not appear in public with blatant makeup, it must have been really difficult. It was basically grace. Grace in all areas had to be entirely natural because any affectation would destroy the effect. And to be considered graceful, every motion needed to be free from confusion or hurry, while at the same time being lively and animated. Can you believe this crap? Not only did all the motions of the legs, hands, and arms need to be graceful, but the head, neck, and even the speech had to display grace as well. I would have probably slit my wrists if I lived in the Victorian era. This so-called development of grace took practice, okay? So lessons began very early. Those who were teaching this in this period were those who had learned their social graces in schools and through books. And women began practicing in childhood and learned how to move properly in long skirts, which was required by the fashion and decorum. Small steps that pushed the skirts out of the way allowed a woman to appear to glide as she moved. Yes, they had to appear as if they were like gliding, like on an escalator. That's insane, okay? Like a conveyor belt, actually. Yeah, so steps would be made from the knee rather from the hips, because swaying the hips as one walked, was thought unseemly. So it was considered unseemly if you walked by swaying by your hips. Turns were made with the entire body, allowing your garments to turn elegantly and gracefully. When sitting, a woman kept her knees spread rather than crossing her legs to keep the skirts neat. Her arms were kept gracefully at her side, emphasizing the long, elegant column. This is just absolutely insane. Emphasizing the long, elegant column of her classically inspired empire waist gown. If she had to cross her arms, it was done at high waistline, so as not to spoil the line or break of her gown. That's insane, okay? Shoot me now, because I would not last 5 minutes in the Victorian era. Yeah, I would have been canceled if I lived in the Victorian era. Now, especially if I wasn't in the Victorian era, if I was in the Regency era, I was expected to be meek, obedient, docile, fragile, and dependent on men. Well, I'm dependent on my husband. I was expected to use the correct English and to avoid vulgarity in speech. A woman's appearance was her crowning glory. If they saw me, if you guys can only see me now, I look like the crazy cat lady or somebody who would collect cans at the side of the road. But back then, I would be canceled. You had to have taste and poise. And it was a good mark of breeding. Oh my goodness. Ugh, shoot me. And imagine you couldn't even utter one even like slight expletive. If you even said the word damn, you were damned. You weren't even allowed to talk about politics. During the Victorian and earlier eras, it was not considered ladylike to talk about things that men talked about. So instead, your polite conversation would include current events, describing a novel or play, telling of some recent experience, discussing poetry, music, love, or friendships. Subjects such as intimacy, childbirth was avoided in polite conversation. You weren't supposed to make puns or jokes, no long arguments. You weren't supposed to gossip. Oh my God, I wouldn't last 2 seconds. And the subjects of religion and politics was really avoided. A woman was never really allowed to refer to any of those male activities about which a lady should feign ignorance. Because men were supposed to be considered the smart ones. And if a woman was very educated and started talking about educated subjects, it was considered a man's thing, not a woman's thing. And so women were supposed to actually be dumb, sort of. Okay, so the one makeup that was sort of allowed was face powder. It was the one acceptable makeup product during the Victorian era. This makeup product was common in the vanities of middle class and upper middle class women. It was created of lightly colored and scented starch. Similar to Victorian soap and talcum powder, other ingredients used to create the face powder were French chalk, Venetian talc, rice powder, and powdered milk made of magnesia. Magnesia, yes. Even ground and dried zinc oxide created an extraordinary pure white powder. And it did not turn gray when exposed to candles. Yeah, they had to worry about that. When exposed to candles, coal fumes, and gas. Very interesting. And that wasn't actually discovered in that combination until 1877. So the pure white powder was used to lighten the complexion. Colored or tinted powders were used to cover up blemishes. Pink tinted powders were there to act as blush, and these face powders were easy to make and cheap to buy, used as medicine, not as face paint. So they were advertised as like blemish cream or some kind of sort of an RX, something you would get at a drugstore. And why? Because they didn't want to market it as makeup, because it was impolite and sort of whorish, and only the actresses and prostitutes wore it. So middle-class women used to need to keep it in a nice container. And this is where we come into the collection of me collecting these beautiful vanity boxes or powder boxes. Most of these are from the late 1800s. We're talking about the 1890 era. And also they made them in miniature as well. Here's another example. And so we have this one here. Look at the hat. That looks about 1880s. And this is Bohemian glass. And this would have held, possibly, this would have been probably a miniature rouge pot or a miniature powder container that maybe a lady could stick in her little teeny tiny little reticule purse. Or pills could have been held in here, or some kind of snuff. But I highly doubt it. Or they could have put a sponge, a vinaigrette sponge with vinegar and some kind of scented oil so the lady could sniff it. But I think this is more of like a little rouge pot or a little powder pot. A lot of people call these pill boxes. It could be a pill box as well. But so here, these are, now I'm going to show you more. We're going to go over the different companies that made these type of these little vanity boxes, all different kinds you can find if you're collecting, and more about the history of each of these makers. So if you collect powder boxes, this is like if you're a powder box collector, a lot of powder box collectors always want boxes from this company called C.F. Monroe. And C.F. Monroe is one of the many Cinderella stories of modern day collecting. Until recently, this fine glass was amazingly neglected. Amazingly, since it easily rivals similar articles produced by the Smith brothers and Mount Washington Pearpoint Glass Companies in nearby New Bedford, Massachusetts. However, while the demand and the prices began to rise for the various decorated opalware articles produced by Mount Washington and the Smith brothers, comparable C.F. Monroe pieces often sat unnoticed on shelves of many antique shops. Now people are starting to notice these boxes and collecting them, and the popularity is it's setting off a firestorm for collectors. It's bringing more enthusiasm, and it's igniting people's passions. It's a dramatic rise of people looking for pieces like this. So decorated opalware was at the height of its popularity from 1890 to 1910. And the C.F. Monroe Company was one of the largest producers of this type of glass. Charles F. Monroe opened his first shop in 1880, and it was located in Meriden, Connecticut. And he dealt primarily in imported glassware. By 1882, Monroe was operating his own glass decorating studio and was soon employing highly talented local artists as decorators. When the 1890s arrived and the demand for finely decorated glass was at its height, the Monroe Company was located in several large buildings on the corner of West Main Street and Capitol Avenue, and employed such fine artists as Carl V. Helmschmidt and many others. But Helmschmidt is the one that made these two boxes here. And yeah, I'm telling you, it's just a lot of these pieces are really highly sought after by collectors right now. And sadly, as is always the case, public tastes changed over time, and the demand for these decorated opalwares began to decline after 1910. The C.F. Monroe Company went out of business in 1916. So it's really sad. But we have these pieces here today to gloat over and enjoy. And now, these things were hand-painted. Now, towards the end of their, of basically, like, very, very towards the end, where they just went like almost out of business, is when they stopped doing this hand painting that you see here. These are earlier pieces. And then they went with transferware. So transferware is basically like a decal that they placed on it and painted over. And so you would see like dot matrix. You could see thousands of dots. And then you could see some hand painting along with it. So the quality actually waned and wasn't as good as the earlier pieces. So these examples that I have here are, they're known as, for collectors, the Helmschmidt swirl. You see this, the swirl work going in it? And that was made by Carl V. Helmschmidt. He designed this beautiful design. But you will find some of them with puffy tops. And it looks like, did you ever see like an egg carton? It has like the, punched in egg carton upside down, and it has that egg carton look to it. Those ones are really sought after by collectors. Also the Helmschmidt, and but the unusual pieces, not just powder boxes. They didn't just make powder boxes, by the way. Unusual pieces. They made wall plaques. They made actual lanterns or gas lanterns or gas lamps. They had all sorts of novelties. It wasn't just vanity boxes. They made letter holders. They made plaques to go on the wall. They made lots of stuff, like a little whisk broom holder that would hang on the wall with your whisk broom dangling down. They made desk sets so you can place your pens into things. They had open hat pin holders, all sorts of things. But for me, the holy grail of collecting C.F. Monroe or Wavecrest pieces are the boxes. I love the boxes, and they're so dainty and so pretty. Let's open one up. And I added the little powder puff. I made this, actually. I bought these from Amazon, and you can buy these plain ones with a little silk ribbon, and I added the little pretty rosette. I just glued that on, and so there would be like powder, loose powder in here before pressed powder became popular. Pressed powder didn't become popular till about 1911 and on. I noticed more so about 1920. Pressed powder was the thing. There was no more loose powder because women wanted to actually carry around teeny tiny little compacts that they can, you know, not have a mess. So the pressed powder would be pressed into these little containers, and so a lady could take these on the go. And there we go. And so here's one such example. Some of them do come with silk linings inside of them. Most of them disintegrate. But look at this hand painting. You see all the beautiful flowers. This does have some information on the bottom from the factory. And this is one of their designs. And they had, you know, design numbers and so on and so forth. So you'd go in a catalog. If you were, say, a merchant that wanted to sell the pieces, you would choose, like, say, number 1361. And, you know, this is an original label. And not all of these pieces are even marked. Some of them will have the wave crest mark. The later pieces are marked Kelva, and I forgot what the other one was. I'm drawing, I think it was Nakara or something like that, but the wave crest mark is generally missing. It wears off the bottom, and you can see it's almost like milk glass. It's a opal, they call it opal glass, and it's very, very cool. All right, now here is another example, and then so they came in different sizes, as you can see here. And it reminds me of an ice cream sandwich. I don't know if it reminds you of an ice cream sandwich. If you live in the Northeast, there's an ice cream chain that's been around for like eons. And they made something called flying saucers. So we would have like a cookie top with ice cream in the center and a big thick cookie top on the bottom. And this is what that reminds me of, a flying saucer. And here we go, the Helmschmied swirl going throughout it, with the little pretty flowers that were all hand painted, no stencils. And then we go up in size here. As you can see this example, this one's enormous. And look at the beautiful workmanship on it. All hand painted, the Helmschmied swirl. It's hard to pronounce that in one sentence without flubbing. And there we go, look at it. It just goes around and around and around. And this has beautiful, I think those are forget-me-nots. And some of them do have interiors that were made out of silk. Some of these boxes held cigars also. They made different shapes. So they made cigar boxes, tobacco boxes, bonbon boxes as well. So some of these might have not have even held powder, but may have been bonbon boxes. And I believe the bonbon boxes actually had a lining inside of them. I don't know if I have any examples with a lining in it, but I do actually. I do have one. I'll pull it out in a few minutes. But here at the butt end, when they were, you know, not doing so well anymore, the glass got flimsier and not as thick and beautiful. And again, the use of stencils, really, you know, it wasn't as good. You know, let's get in there close. You could see the thousands of dots. So you know that's definitely a transfer wear. That was not like done by hand, by an artist. Somebody just, you know, went over the little areas of decal. And so it wasn't as great. All right, so we'll open this one up. Somebody actually wrote a notation on the bottom, and I can't make out what it says, but some people even mark these pieces because they received them as gifts from loved ones. And yes, I did make my own little powder puff. Here we go. And so it gives it like a little bit more ambiance. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to show you another piece of theirs. The big one, I just noticed it has a remnant of the original mark. I don't know if you can see that. It's really, they fade. They fade really easily. And you'll probably never get to see them unless this was probably a sticker, like the other sticker that had the model number of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you some other examples. Now, a lot of collectors that aren't advanced in this can miss a couple of pieces made by them. Like, for example, they would think this was Bohemian or Bohemian glass. A lot of Bohemian glass makers did make pieces with enamelware and in colored glass or Murano. They might think it's like a Murano piece. But yes, this is definitely a C.F. Monroe wave crest piece. And we got this beautiful seashell. I don't know if you can see this. It's like a scallop shell design. Really, really pretty. Look at that. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And there we go. We have the pretty enameled flowers. Look at that. Look at how artistic that is. And this is a beautiful piece. A lot of people pass these up not knowing that these were wave crest pieces and just think they're cheap. Later, like in the 30s or 40s or 50s, like Italian Murano pieces or cheap Bohemian pieces, which Bohemia was Czechoslovakia, or what we know today as the Czech Republic. And this opens just like the other. There we go. And look at that. You see? All right. So that would have been passed up. You wouldn't have known. Now, they came in many different colors also, not just pink, which is interesting. So here's another piece by them. And sometimes you'll find pieces that are footed. And these are actually worth more. And look how beautiful. We got lion paw feet. Really, really quite lovely. And you can see their signature opal ware glass. Very, very pretty. This one has little curly cues on the side. And this was made towards the end, you know, towards the very end when they use stencils. So you'll start to see that a lot of like little drawings of angels and stuff like that. And you know it's like towards the end, probably early 20th century, 1900 to about 1910-ish, right around there. And this is a big one. And a lot of people will say French antique casket box, but it's not even French. It's a wave crest. All right, so let's open. And this one may have been a bonbon box because we have the original, look at that, the original silk interior, which, by the way, silk completely disintegrates. So a lot of these boxes are actually even missing the interiors because they just fall to pieces and fall to dust, and people just like pull them out. And it may have even been inside this lid and was pulled out as well. So I don't know, but there's another example. And that's another type that you will come across if you collect. You can find these footed pieces. Here's an example of one that was completely missed by collectors. Somebody was listing it on eBay, did not know what this was, said it was a trinket box that was missing the top and it was broken. And did not say that it was CF Monroe or Wave Crest. This is the egg crate design I was telling you about. This one is gorgeous. Okay, look at this. You see the beautiful gold work going through it. It's like some kind of bronze. There we go, gilded metal. And this is just stunning. It's unmarked, thankfully, because then the person would know what it was. And so nobody challenged me. And I got this for really cheap, I think 25 bucks. And what this is actually a letter holder. It wasn't supposed to have a top, so that's why it scared a lot of people away because they thought it was a broken box. So some of these were just like this. And for example, I'll just put some stuff in it right now. Just like they would have like 100 years ago. And I'm going to put my mother's mass cards and prayer cards in here. And let's go ahead and do that. And that's the way it would have been actually like 100 years ago. Somebody would have placed letters or doodads in there, notes, what have you. Actually calling cards if someone visited them. And this is an older piece. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. And I'm so glad that I was unchallenged on this one because I really won it for a steal. The next powder box I'm going to show you that you'll probably come across if you're collecting is one of these. And they came in different sizes. This is glass, and I believe, I'm no expert, I believe this was made by Pearpoint or Mount Washington. I think it was two companies that one company made the metal and the other company made the glass. I'm not sure which one. I think Mount Washington was the one that made the glass, and I'm trying to think, or was it Pearpoint that made the glass? It's one or the other, but it's two companies that were like working in conjunction with each other to make many things, not just powder boxes. They made all sorts of things, glass lamps. They made novelties, all sorts of pretty novelties out of cut glass. So this is all done by hand. It is not pressed, so it's not early American pressed glass. It's early American cut glass. And so this piece, again, probably circa late 1800s, early 20th century. in the teens, maybe all the way up into about the 20s. And then the stock market, you know, crashes. And then, yeah, people aren't buying expensive things anymore. But look at this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful hand cut work going all throughout this. You see, I think this is a daisy. Now, they had many different patterns to choose from, and there's names for the patterns. If you become a collector of it, you're going to start to notice, like, okay, it's this pattern. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but there's many different patterns that you can choose and get all the same pieces for it in a group. So you can get the powder box, you can get the letter holder, you can get, like, you know, it'll come in the same pattern, but you can get the whole entire set with the same pattern. So that's what collectors look for. They not only want to buy these powder boxes, they want to buy these whole entire sets of the same design. And here we go. Look at this cut work in the glass. It's like rainbows. Do you see how that glimmers in the light? And we have these gorgeous leaves or stalks coming up, and there's 3 leaves coming out this way. It goes all throughout the box, the cuts. You can see these cuts. These were done on a wheel, which is interesting. A lot of these workers were artisans, like really amazing at the craft of this glass decoration. And a lot of these are silver plated. And sadly, it's like nickel underneath. And over the years, it just wears off. The silver plating wears off. And so this is not an issue. It's not a major issue. But you can see where the silver was once over the base metal. And that's quite common with these pieces. These are all blackened with age. I don't suggest, if you get a piece like this, I don't suggest you even trying to clean it with silver polish, because it's such a thin layer of silver. You're going to end up with issues, all right? So I even put like little whimsies in here. My daughter was like, that's so creepy. I showed her today. Like when they were little and they got their first little haircut, like I made little bows out of their hair. I know that's like crazy and insane, but this is one of my kids' hair when she was a little child, and my other kid's hair when she got her first haircut. And why does it look like there's gray hairs in there? Because I probably caused them. I probably caused my kids gray hairs, but there we go. And voila. And you can make like little hair keepsakes like that, put them in here. But this was a powder box. Definitely a powder box. Now I'm going to show you some other ones that you will come across that are quite stunning and beautiful and unfortunately very expensive. All right, so the next type of powder boxes that you will come across will be Bohemian. And an example such as this. Now, a lot of people see this and think this is Mary Gregory glass. Well, they call it Mary Gregory glass. And Mary Gregory was it's sort of like a fairy tale. I can't even explain. I don't even think the woman ever existed. They claim there was a woman named Mary Gregory that worked for the Boston and Sandwich Glass Company, and she would make whimsical little children out of enamel on and decorated on glass. And apparently they did research, and they can't even find that such a woman even existed or even worked for the Boston and Sandwich Glass Company. So this actually is most likely Bohemian, made in the place that we know today as the Czech Republic. They made very beautiful colored enameled glass. As you can see in this example, this is apple green. It's not found very often, so you don't really find too many glass pieces in this color. You will find it a lot in red or in a blue, like almost like a dark cobalt blue. You'll find it in sort of like a burgundy color. You'll find it in many different colors, but the green one you don't see too often. This has some wear on the gilding or the enameling, but that's to be expected. This was probably made with a stencil and painted over. They had to make, I mean, thousands of these, so they didn't have that much time to do this free-handedly, although it does look free-handed. There's no marks on this. You will generally find no marks. Some companies that come to mind that made pieces like this were Moser, M-O-S-E-R. Also, Venetian glass companies worked along with Moser, and they collaborated sometimes. So sometimes the glass was actually made in, say, Italy, and then decorated in Bohemia, or vice versa. So you'll find pieces like this in different sizes and in different colors. Some hastily painted, you know, terribly painted. The paint like almost half worn off. But you'll find pieces like this. These actually generally sell for a lot of money. Some of them do come with little brass feet on the bottom. Some of them are in rectangular shapes and bigger and more elaborate, and they call those casket boxes. Those are phenomenal. Those could sell for thousands of dollars. And this one over here, now this one is a mystery because I thought it was Bohemian, of course, because we had that enameled glass that's colored, most typically Bohemian, but we have the type of feet that you would see on a wave crest piece. So it's really, it's really confusing me. I'm thinking that it's an early wave crest piece, and I'll tell you why. Because when wave crest first started, they actually got the glass imported. So it came from France, it came from other countries into the U.S., and they decorated it here. So this could very well be an early wave crest piece that was made from Bohemian glass. And that could be what this is. So it's either or, Bohemian or a wave crest piece. And again, look at the gorgeous, gorgeous feet. We'll flip it over. And this is almost like a root beer color. And again, this is not a common color. You'll see it's almost topaz, very topaz looking. And I'll open it up and you can see, look at that, almost like a Vaseline color in different lighting. And speaking of Vaseline, this box over here was made with radium or uranium, and they call that Vaseline glass. So this was probably the one that is not the oldest out of all of them. The one that's more closest to the teens and the getting close to the 1920 time frame. Although uranium or radium was, I think it was actually used in glass in much earlier times, like actually in the mid-Victorian time frame, a little earlier. Radium was placed in glass and mixed with it to give it like some kind of luster in the dark, but this one glows. And we're going to shut the lights out for this one. You ready? Okay, so we're in the dark, right? But watch this. Okay, tell me that's not the coolest thing ever. All right, so sometimes you get surprised and your glass will glow. And so when you're looking in thrift shops, take one of those black light flashlights. You can get them at Home Depot or on Amazon. Take them along with you. Take the glass over to the darkest part of the room and shine it on the glass. And you'll be able to tell if you have Vaseline or uranium or radium glass very easily. Now I'm aiming it at the other glass just to see if we have any kind of radium in any of the pieces. And I do not see any radium in any of the other pieces. And that is our only radium piece. And that, look at that, that is just fabulous. I just love that. Now, some people collect only this type of glass. And they have special black lights, which is actually purple. And they keep their glass at nighttime in the dark. And then they have special lights aimed up at their glass, and the room is glowing green. And that is like the coolest thing ever. Okay, let's talk prices. I'm no expert. And generally people like Dr. Lori will say, well, what did it sell for? But I'll tell you, sometimes that's not always true. Sometimes you'll find a sleeper on eBay. For example, this piece right here, the letter holder, and I got it for $25. And people like Dr. Lori will say, well, you paid $25 for it. That's the comparable. So it's worth $25. No, it's not, because it was a sleeper. The seller thought it was a broken trinket box, and it turned out it wasn't. It's a letter holder. And so you can't always follow that. Also, eBay prices always trend much lower. So for example, a piece like this on eBay, if it was actually advertised correctly, it would probably sell for about $75 to $125. On a bad day, $50 to $60. On Ruby Lane, this would probably be selling for about anywhere between $275 to $425. So it depends on where you're selling it, who you're marketing it to, and yeah, if you find the right collector, the collector will pay top dollar. There's some people that they don't bargain. They don't bargain hunt. They don't go searching around for who has the cheapest price. They just see something, they like it, and they buy it. And there's people out there like that. So this piece here, this generally will sell. Now, they list these actually at good, high prices on eBay, but they sit around for a long time on eBay. And a piece like this would sit on eBay. Somebody would probably, who knew what it was, would probably put a price of about anywhere between $225 to about $375 on eBay. And it would sit there for a year or two. But I've had pieces like this in my my Etsy shop. No problem selling it. Within 6 months, I would get anywhere between $375 to $425 for a piece like this. All right. But on eBay, don't expect that. If you're flipping, you find one of these in a thrift store and you get it for 20 bucks and you think you're going to get $300-400 on eBay for it, think not. You can probably sell something like this quick for about $75 to $125. Otherwise, it's going to sit. A piece like this with the feet, again, eBay, you're not going to get the price. But if this was in my Etsy shop, I would sell this for no less than $375 to $400. It's just absolutely exquisitely beautiful. Why give it away? Why give the, what's the saying? Why buy the milk when you can get the cow for free or some crap like that? Whatever. This little custard glass type of piece that glows in the dark. Again, it's decaled. It's towards the butt end of the wave crest operation. Probably on eBay, something like this, $20 to $40. In my Etsy shop, I wouldn't sell this for less than $150. And it might sit there for a year or 6 months, but I wouldn't let it go for less than like $125 to $150. All right, this little piece right here, this adorable little piece, I see these selling all the time, and people get into bid wars over these little, what's called pill boxes, these bohemian pill boxes. But I see them selling all the time for between about $35, some even less. If the, painting is worn on it and it's in not good shape, sometimes the hinges are broken on these. Those, of course, less. But something like this on eBay I'd say about $35 to about $60, right? Now, the more unusual it is, the more money it'll fare. It'll get more interest. But on my Etsy shop, if I still had an Etsy shop, I don't sell anymore on Etsy or anywhere for that matter, I wouldn't sell this for less than $1.25. $150 to $125 to $150, maybe even a little more. Sometimes I would put the price sky high at like $2.25. And just let it sit for 6 months. Why? Because I was never in a rush for my items to sell because I wanted to keep them, actually. And if someone wanted to pay the high price, then I would let it go. So yeah, I'd probably put the price of $225 on this, see what happens. And if I'm desperate, then I'm going to let it go for like $150, $1.25. But yeah, I was never, you see that was the beauty of my business. When I was in business doing this, I just never ever let the stuff go for cheap. And if somebody didn't want it because of the price, then they didn't have to have it. And I'd get to keep it in my collection longer. Okay, the Helmschmied Swirl Wave Crest, the smaller box, on eBay all day long, $38.50 to about $80. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. In an Etsy shop, about $150 to $200. Right there, all right? Ruby Lane. Those dealers get the price because they have a high, look, I'm not putting anyone down. I'm a shopper on eBay, but I'm a shopper that looks for bargains to add to my collection. That's how I got these pieces. I couldn't afford full retail for these on Ruby Lane or on Etsy. I got all mine for pennies on the dollar for, hunting for them. Okay, so the medium-sized Helmschmied Swirl on eBay, sometimes they don't even sell. Somebody will have it listed at $75 opening bid, and the auction ends. Nobody bid on it. Yeah, on eBay, about $50 to about $75 hairs, and that's it. But on Etsy or Ruby Lane or a specialized shop, $225 to $300. No problem with that. Somebody will come along, somebody with deep pockets, who doesn't feel like bargain hunting. They don't want to go checking the whole entire internet for a piece like this. Okay, this Wave Crest, this really unique shell one on eBay, unfortunately, $70 bucks, $80. Some of them 50 bucks, and people actually get them for that cheap. But on Etsy or Ruby Lane, I wouldn't let this baby go for less than $325. At least $325. And if it sits, it sits. There's an ask for every seat. There's somebody that will come along with the money, and they just don't give a shiz. They'll pay it because they just love it. All right, the next piece is this footed one. About in my Etsy shop, or if I had my Ruby Lane shop that I used to have, I wouldn't let this go for less than $475. $475 to $500, because it's beautiful. It's very, very Victorian, dainty. It has the feet. It has the angels. It's just really, it's got a lot going on. All right, on eBay, you couldn't get rid of this for 75 bucks. It's really a shame. That's why I stopped selling on eBay. I don't sell anything on eBay anymore. It's not worth my time to pack stuff up and ship and make listings and descriptions and take photos. Everyone out there is out there for a bargain. And there are people like me hunting for things. Okay, this large Helmschmied. This one I wouldn't let go for less than, in my Etsy shop, between $425 and $525. Now on eBay, about $75 to $125. It's a damn shame. It really is. eBay's really actually making the prices of antiques trend down. It hurts the price of antiques, unfortunately. But there's people that just don't care about bargains. They're not looking for the bargains. They don't give a crap. They want what they want when they want it. And they don't want to go shopping around and looking and comparing prices. They're not the bargain hunters. They're the rich people of Beverly Hills. And when I used to sell my stuff, a lot of people actually had addresses that had 90210 zip codes in Beverly Hills. And then when I would be nosy and I would Google their address, and they would live in like $8 million, $10 million, $15 million houses. They just didn't care. They wanted it. Okay, so this Pearpoint Mount Washington piece on eBay, unfortunately, 50, I see them going for 50 to about 80 bucks. And if they sell, they'll just sit and sit and sit, and the seller will keep relisting and nothing happens. On a specialized site like Etsy or on Ruby Lane, something like this, $350 to $450. Easy. It's a big giant one. No cracks, no chips. The hinge is not broken. Yeah. And so eBay is sort of like, I don't know, it was like, after a while, I got sick and tired of all the people that were trying to bargain and get bargain basement prices. I was like, enough of you fools. Even though I'm one of them, I'm not going to lie. That's where I get my collection from. I find all my shiz on, and that's what I used to do. I used to flip. I used to get these things for pennies on the dollar. And I used to flip my stuff on Ruby Lane that I got from eBay for triple, quadruple, sometimes 5 or 6 times the value or the price, right in a specialized shop with more high, how could I put this, high-class buyers. I'm not going to lie. People that just don't care, they have the money, and they just want the item, and they'll pay anything for it. So thanks for watching. So these are really collectible. They're fun. They're amazing to collect. There's so many different variations, so many different designs, so many different colors and shapes that you would want to add to your collection of women's early vanity pieces. And sky's the limit when it comes to finding different colors, different designs, different shapes. You can just keep looking and looking and looking and adding to your collection. It's the never-ending collection that is just fun to collect. Thanks for watching. See you guys all soon, and we'll do another video shortly of some other collectibles.